we really are at a turning point. I think we're going to look back at this era-ish of Trump's presidency as when it all kind of changed. We all were outraged and shocked by what he was doing so far, but he seemed to be loving the journey. Now, and the biggest catalyst of his unraveling has been Epstein. And I have more updates throughout the show on that, but it's kind of having a ripple effect through everything. He's out of control. And I have a bunch of examples of that through different public appearances recently, starting with, I'm sure you've seen this, but he just calls a reporter piggy, like a pig.
Sir, if there's nothing incriminating in the file, sir, why are you acting as a...
There's something so jarring. Look, I know podcast listeners won't be able to see this, but you can imagine there's a certain frightening maliciousness exuding from him. He gets kind of up in her face and points his finger, quiet piggy. And a bunch of different outlets confirmed that that's indeed what he was saying. Her name wasn't Peggy or something like that, from all I can tell. So piggy. Now, I saw that the Lincoln Project said Trump, a literal pig, said to a reporter, quiet piggy. To which I was thinking, I get the point, right? He's sort of a pig. He's a predator, stuff like that. Literal, I think, might be inaccurate. I don't think he's literally genetically... All right. I just get a little triggered by the misuse of the word literal, but that's not the important part. Obviously disgusting what he said there. Then he has this press conference with the Crown Prince Saudi Arabia, Mr. Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS. And a lot of crazy stuff happened during this. Before playing this first clip, please do, if you appreciate the show, click the subscribe button. Jaden, you can throw up that chart. This just gives you a sense of how many people regularly watch the show but aren't even subscribed. So by clicking that button, you make a big difference.
It's another league, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
So podcast listeners, he reaches out and kind of sticks his tongue out and grabs the hand of MBS.
And Trump doesn't give a fist pump. I grabbed that hand. I don't give a hell where that hand's been. I grabbed that hand.
He's a grabber, not a fister.
When remember Biden? He travels for 20 hours, gets out, and he gives a fist bump. No. When you get out of the plane and you got the future king and the man who's one of the most respected people in the world, you shake his hand. You don't give him a fist bump, right? We don't want to ask you about that, but I can't imagine you were thrilled. You were like a little bit surprised. He's a fantastic guy. You don't do that. Yeah, please.
So Trump kept touching him. He really likes MBS to the point where, I'll show you in a second, he insults a dead journalist that MBS approved of the murder of, who got dismembered, Jamal Khashoggi. Now, this picture, I think, sums up the state of Trump's presidency. A flag. They said it was a protocol so that it didn't get blown really hard or something by Marine One. Blown really hard. Apologies. I'm not trying to do that. Not on purpose. But I know, Bubba, we're not supposed to use the word blow right now with that all in the news cycle. But Trump just so disheveled coming back from Mar-a-Lago and the American flags draped on the ground. Yeah, that's the state of things right now. But he was grabbing and touching MBS a lot. Some people asked, is this the next Bubba? I won't weigh in on such things. Then this gets real contentious.
President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine.
Of course, Trump's making money, so he does have something to do with it.
They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot.
They should do more.
And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was. and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Mr. President.
Think about how sick that is. A Washington Post journalist gets murdered and dismembered, approved of by MBS sitting right there. And Trump says, well, Jamal Khashoggi, a lot of people didn't like him. When Trump's own intelligence community in his first term were the ones who determined MBS's role. And Trump, again, like he did with Putin, is siding with MBS, going, he probably didn't even know anything about it, over his own intelligence in his first term. Then you have MBS responding.
Journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for, no real purpose or not in a legal way. And it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Mr. President.
He's going to do his best to make sure he doesn't murder someone again. He's going to really try. So it's not that we shouldn't have diplomatic relations with whoever we can, and we want to have peaceful diplomatic resolutions and, like I said, geopolitical relationships with countries. That's not what people are arguing when they criticize MBS or what Trump just did there. But we also, parallel to that, have to stand for something. Like against the murdering of journalists would be one. Very sickening stuff there. But I mean, this is a part of Trump's character, right? We saw a physical representation of just how much he loves, to the point where he's gripping the hand more passionately than he's ever touched Melania of MBS, how much he loves these authoritarians. Then he keeps getting into it with an ABC reporter.
And people are wise to your hoax. And ABC's, your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something.
So why not just sign it now?
I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong. And we have a great commissioner, the chairman, who should look at that, because I think when you come in and when you're 97% negative to Trump and then Trump wins the election in a landslide, that means obviously your news is not credible and you're not credible as a reporter. So I've answered your question. You should go and look at the Democrats who received money from Epstein, who spent their time. Larry Summers was with him all the time.
You know what's actually something someone pointed out that's a little interesting is Trump for much of his life identified as a Democrat. So he does this. I heard Epstein was friends with Democrats. Like me back then. No, but of course he's just trying to make this for his base back to a partisan issue instead of what it is, which is just a clear moral issue, regardless of partisan lines. And he's unraveling every time he gets asked about the subject.
That creep, the fund guy, was with him all the time. What's his name? Who? Reid Hoffman. I don't know Reid Hoffman, but I know he spends a lot of money on the radical left. Reid Hoffman, in my opinion, should be under investigation. He's a sleazebag. And those are the people, but they don't get any press, they don't get any news, and you're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible.
You just called a reporter piggy, and you're talking about people being rude and mean to you. Now, what this is he's kind of, picture like in a school lunch cafeteria, the one kid starts bullying the other kid to impress the cool kid. Trump's kind of trying to impress MBS by going, you don't respect the rights of journalists. Let me show you how little I respect the rights of journalists, or how much I respect their role in this process. You're being too mean to me, as he's calling for their license to be revoked. And then he doubled down on that, which was, I don't care, he argues, I don't care at all about answering Epstein questions. It's just the way you're asking them is so offensive.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question.
Insubordinate to a journalist. That's kind of their whole job in relation to power, but not in Trump's worldview.
And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter.
Oh my gosh. You could have asked that question in a nice way. Let me show you. Dear Mr. President, I totally get it. But like, would you explain why you're covering for pedophiles? Like, but go you. You're the bomb.com. But what's the whole covering for pedos thing? Is that how you ask the question in a nice way, Donald? So the Legal Project said he could release the files himself at any time, which was that question, without Congress, but he doesn't. Which is true. Because he's the one that the House is even passing a bill to force to release. So he could just do it. He doesn't need to go, well, now I support the legislation. He could just do it. We explained this before. To which Catturd, which is a very prominent right-wing account, even though it sounds like a joke, said, funny, I remember you screaming no kings just a few weeks ago. As if it's a dunk. But how Catturd... The guy who runs this account is a real, MAGA guy, but I don't know his name. So Catturd, do you understand that the document that the executive branch has, they can choose to release them. Now you're saying checks. We love Trump doing everything in an extremely authoritarian way and using the executive branch more expansively than any other president, except we think he should go through every single procedural hurdle, even unnecessary ones, with the Epstein files. That's their argument. Now we really want Congress to be involved, not on anything else. Hey, this is a weird coincidence. While we're talking about all the sex trafficking stuff, we get this reporting. The White House intervened on behalf of accused sex trafficker Andrew Tate during a federal investigation. One official involved said it was so offensive to what we're all here to do, to uphold the law and protect the American people. So Trump's White House intervened to help out Andrew Tate there. And then you have more about Steve Bannon, just while we're still on the Epstein topic. Text revealed Trump's right-hand man promised protection for Epstein. Bannon has a lot to answer for. And he was messaging with Epstein saying, you don't have to worry personally because I'm sending you somewhere beyond extradition. This is believed to be Bannon. When the aforementioned texts were exchanged, it had been just over a year since Bannon was forced out of Trump's administration. And Epstein said, now you can understand why Trump wakes up in the middle of the night sweating when he hears you and I are friends. Now, Steve Bannon looks like someone who would be best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. And I just say that in the least sensitive way that I possibly can. But I didn't know it until now that it was this level of friendship. And he did all these interviews with Jeffrey Epstein and then never released the footage. You also have this, that Jared Kushner in 2013 invited Epstein to a party well after Trump said he had distanced himself from Epstein, to a party with Trump and Harvey Weinstein. This just sounds like it's made up. But look at this. Look at the guest list. You have to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. Jared Kushner, New York's youngest powerhouse publisher, is celebrating the 25th anniversary of the New York Observer on Thursday. We want you to be there. And both Harvey Weinstein and Trump are on the list. Birds of a feather, I think the phrase goes. Back to the press conference. Trump should, as I even noticed with myself, keep blow or blue or blowing, just in light of recent emails, out of his lingo. But he kept bringing it up here.
Right? And we're walking, and I asked the Crown Prince, so outside of Trump, because I blow everyone away, who was the best president for Saudi?
Yeah. He blows. And Asen quoted the transcript saying, outside of Trump, because I blow everyone. Who was the best president? He left out blow everyone away. Because there's emails where Mark Epstein, we're going to get to Mark Epstein later in the show, but said to Jeffrey Epstein, ask Putin if he has the video of Trump blowing Bubba. And Bubba was a nickname for Bill Clinton, but then Mark Epstein said, whoa, I was not referring to Bill Clinton there. And we'll circle back on that. But Trump said it again.
And Reagan, he's one of the historical presidents that have close ties with Saudi Arabia. But we've worked with all presidents.
Does Trump blow them all away?
No.
He has it on his mind. Now, then you have Thomas Massie calling out that Mike Johnson was hoping that the Senate would make some. So the breaking news that we're going to get to later in the show is that the bill did pass the House. So now it's going to the Senate to force the release of the Epstein files. But a lot of the advocacy for Mike Johnson was fine. We'll pass it now that I lost and they forced a vote. So I was blocking a vote as Speaker of the House. Now they forced it. So, I'm going to be on the right side of history when it's too late. But then Massie points out what he was emphasizing in his press conference. This is how Speaker Johnson plans to protect perverts who went to the rape island from embarrassment. Do not let the Senate add an amendment to avoid disclosing those rich and powerful men who have evaded justice for so many years. Is Johnson calling all victims non-credible? And this was a poster they had up during Johnson's press conference. Dangers of the discharge petition, if not amended. Number 2 is innocent persons risk disclosure of non-credible allegations, creating new victims, meaning he keeps repeating people could be referenced and they didn't do anything wrong, but then people will draw conclusions, which isn't even true. There's all sorts of people who have already been named in publicly available documents, and no one says, oh, they're a pedophile, unless there's deep evidential basis for that. There's tons of people who have been named who had a meeting, who had a business relationship, who flew on a plane at one point, and people don't jump to that conclusion. So you can release it all, and then depending on the caliber of the evidence, adults should be wise in how they respond. With all of that happening, I guess right before his meeting with MBS, Trump spent a little time with Scott Jennings. And Scott Jennings is more... This is so cringy to me. It embodies how Trump captures these media figures, where all it takes is a little good boy, little Scott Bougie, and then he abandons all credibility and impartiality. Look at this. He went into the Oval Office to get his book signed, like a happy little boy on Christmas.
Well, thanks.
All right, see you later. Okay. Well, we saw the president. He's a big fan. Hit shelves in the morning.
And the book is A Revolution of Common Sense: How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Civilization. From CNN's biggest star, Scott Jennings.
Because when you own as many libs as I do, you gotta put a place to put them all.
Bad time for this book release, Bubba. Is it common sense? Is it common sense what you're seeing from Trump right now, Scott? Is it common sense covering up the evidence files? Come on, explain how that is common sense. Is it common sense, as we're going to get to later in the show, exempting certain food products from tariffs to lower the prices after he told us for years that tariffs wouldn't increase the prices? Well, then why would removing the tariffs decrease the prices? Is it common sense to rip away healthcare for millions of people so that people like Trump get more tax cuts? Is that common? Where's the common sense? Oh, men and women's sports. I'm sure that's the first page, quote unquote. I did find funny, look at this. He says Trump's a big fan. Look at what he wrote. To Scott, you are great. Trump. That's the letter. To Scott, you're great. That's all he can think of. Trump's a big fan. He gave me the same thing he gives to every single, like when thousands of letters come in, they just stamp it with, you're great. Recover from cancer, Trump. Just like boilerplate. Get better, get well soon. Messages, look at this. Just a happy boy. And we're supposed to trust that he's impartial or that he has good analysis. Wow. Without those CNN lights. Not the same Scott that I know.